All right, well, we're back here today with Swell Podcast. Chip McGraw here, founder, CEO of McGraw. And I've got with me today Stanley Adwell, president and founder of Intellisteel, has joined us today. Stanley's been a longtime friend, and also we previously worked together. We're going to talk a little bit more about, get into a little bit about entrepreneurial journeys, which Stanley's been on one for quite some time. He is also a serial entrepreneur and crazy lunatic that we have agreed to have on this show. I don't know how we got talked into it, but we did. He made us drink beer. So cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers to beer.
Cheers.
And in the spirit of coastal living, surfing, we were drinking the Longboard Lager Ale. If Kona Brewing Company would like to send us some for free, we will gladly take it. And that's a smooth beer. Thanks, Kona.
Yeah.
So anyway, Stan, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah.
Start there.
Yeah.
And, who's Stan? How did you get here today? Give us a little backstory on Intellisteel, what you guys are doing.
Sure.
It's been a bit of a journey to get to where you are today.
Yeah.
But it seems like things are really ramping up and things are going great for you guys.
Yeah.
And trajectory looks really good. So
Yeah, well, getting here was not by design. It was not planned. No, I mean, getting here was unplanned, unorganized, unexpected, but we ended up here. And, I've spent, like you said, I've been a serial entrepreneur for my whole career, basically. Came out of college, ran out of money. Someone sold me with a cheeseburger and a milkshake, and showed me he was showing me copies of his checks and how much money he was making. I was like, I could probably do that with you. I was 23 and he was 17, and he's like, I need someone to be the face of the company. I'm like, he said, I need gray hair is what he said. And I'm like, gray hair? I'm 23. And I don't know what you're doing. And he goes, help me out. So I helped him out, and it just went from there. So we started a business that I had no idea what I was doing, no clue about it, not interested in it. We started it up, formed a team, built it, grew it, still operating today. I sold my shares, met somebody in between during that process and that journey. I had like a 5-year plan with him at 4 years. Met that guy. He said, I need you to raise some money for me. I've got a patent holder for asymmetric wireless technology, which is what we use today in our phones. And he said, this is a big thing. And I said, all right, I'll try that. I've never asked anybody for money. And I called around that. I don't even know what technology it was. And he was like, just ask for money. I'm like, okay. So I started asking people for money. Every question they asked me, I had zero idea. I just had 2 legal pads, and I would just pick up the phone and call. They'd ask me a question. I got to get back to you. I didn't have one answer for one person one time. And finally, I learned kind of what they were asking me, and then we raised enough money. We raised about $1.8 million. We brought the guy on board, and then the guy who brought me in said, we're going to start buying up internet service companies all over Florida. And I was like, all right, let's go do that. So we started doing that, and I thought we were going to fly around. I thought it was going to be really cool. And he's like, no, I'm driving you everywhere. I want you to hear me discuss with them so you understand how to buy companies, which is cool. I mean, you know what it's like, right?
Yeah.
It's relationships. It's not really education or formality. It's really an entrepreneurship. It's about who you know, who's teaching you, what are you learning on the fly. And that's what he did. I mean, he showed me how to buy companies and how to build companies up and how to build teams. And so we did that, and then spun that into another company by chance that was designing and engineering critical facilities that I had no idea what we were doing, but they were the best at what they did, and got involved with them there, and then did it again with another company. And then someone said, hey, I need you to meet this technology owner of what Intellisteel uses, a frame CAD.
right.
But you got to talk about when I called you up.
Yeah, I remember. That was. I had just basically made a big change in my life too.
Yeah.
Sold my company in Costa Rica, moved back here. Yeah. Not really having a plan, and had briefly taken a job at Merrill Lynch. Thought I wanted to be some kind of investment broker or something. That definitely was not the right path for me. In the box was not where I needed to be at all.
Not at
so
all.
I was very happy when I received the call from you about FrameCAD, and that created quite a journey for us both. So
worked out good for me because I had no idea what I was doing yet. And I called you up and you're like, hell yeah, I know cold form steel. I've already built houses with cold form steel down in Central America. I went, really? That's great, man. You can help me out.
Yeah.
He's like,
Yeah, for me it was probably, I did have a little bit of a probably more insight on the whole deal.
A lot more.
But it was a wild ride, and yeah, it's great. It's great that you guys decided to move forward with it.
Can I tell a story that what happened when I called you up? I was in New
Sure.
Zealand.
Yeah.
I'm literally in New Zealand, and I call up. I know Chip through a mutual friend of ours, which is your uncle or cousin or
My cousin,
second cousin. Yeah, Lou.
Yeah.
Uncle Lubo.
Uncle Lou.
So, he's put us together. We talked before
Uh-huh.
we, hung out. But then he told me, I said, I think Chip's done this before. And I'm down in New Zealand. And then the guy's like, well, you're going to build your team? I'm like, yeah, I'll build my team. He's like, well, call some people up. So I was like, all right. So I called up you. And you were in the,
I was in my office at my desk at Merrill Lynch.
yeah. He was literally.
I was at the trading desk.
He was at the trading desk. He was at the trading desk, and he's like, "Hey man, just give me 5 minutes." So I call him back in 5 minutes, and you went into like a closet, or I don't know where you went, but you went somewhere, and you're like, "I know exactly what you're doing. I know I've already built with this, right?" That's what you're telling me on the phone. I'm like, "Well, this is good, right?" And the owner's sitting over my shoulder, and he's like, "Well, this is good, right?" Right, we're going to get Latin America. I said, "You want to head up Latin America?" You're like, "Yeah." You started doing this with your tie. You're like, I'm out of here, man. You're like, I'm done, right? And it was like, I think it was like that. You made a decision, man, and you were gone.
Yeah. I think a free trip to New Zealand also was in the card.
Was part of it.
So that was of interest.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, yeah, great surf. I mean, look, as an entrepreneur, and obviously, Intellisteel branched off from, bought the. You drank the Kool-Aid, basically.
I did drink the Kool-Aid.
Drank the Kool-Aid of what FrameCAD is and
Yeah.
what they do, as a technology provider.
Yeah.
And but it was a great time. At the time, it was a great opportunity, I think, for you and I both to learn something new.
You were both looking for that,
Yeah,
right?
looking for some opportunity. The world was a different place right after the global financial crisis.
Oh yeah. Sure.
Things were pretty tough. It was a good time. It was a good time to get into something, and I think it catapulted us both into other opportunities eventually, and gave us an opportunity to really go around. And hey, I think we did great things for that company.
We did great things for that company.
We
We
really
set them
set
up.
for where they are today,
Yeah,
and
right,
they're
right.
doing quite well.
Yeah.
Definitely planted all the seeds that they needed for this hemisphere,
Yeah, that's right.
both north and
100%.
south, and so I think that was great. But it was a wild ride, and made some great friends and great contacts. And well, you guys, like I said, you drank the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
You grabbed a hold of it.
I'm
You
just
decided to
using
go
the
forward.
Kool-Aid. I'm not drinking it. I'm just using it, right? Because the opportunity
Right.
is what it is, right?
Right, and it's a great technology.
Yeah.
And we've been privileged to also help you along with a little bit on that. Bringing in HubSpot, get you a little bit organized.
That helps.
Thank you for that opportunity.
Yeah, thank you.
And so cold form steel, quite innovative.
Yeah.
Although it's been around for a century or
It's
so,
a
right?
century.
Yeah.
Over a
So
century.
technology has been around for a long time. It's been slow to be adopted in many sectors of the construction industry.
Yeah.
Where are you guys finding success today? What's your niche really, and how are you guys using this technology today? And what's your path to success with Intellisteel?
I think you and I both know is that technology is kind of infiltrating all different parts and all different industries, right? Construction industry was the last one to be touched. That's the traditional. That's the one steeped in tradition that will never change, right? And that's what we were up against the whole time. In other countries, and specifically in the U.S., the U.S. was the last to adopt. So when I say that I use the Kool-Aid, is that I do, because I know that the opportunity, like as an entrepreneur, we both got into this because we saw there was an opportunity to figure out where we were going to go with it, but not that we were going to live in it and stay in it, right?
Right.
Well, actually I did, I guess, a little bit, but
Yeah.
a little longer. But, that's what we did. And then as we got into it, we saw the opportunity. We could see where it would insert itself and where it could apply itself to coming out of the crisis, that they're going to have the same problems with labor, same problems with material, same problems with demand, right? And that's all going to repeat itself. And this kind of solved those problems, right? So, I think that technology application into construction has now come full circle. And then on top of that, by chance, and this is, I was very fortunate and lucky that COVID applied all of its force into showing what wood is not, right? Our number one construction material in the U.S. is wood. And COVID exposed all of it for the very first time. Everybody wanted to move away if they could. They just didn't have a reason to, because it was too cheap and it was too normal. But once COVID hit, supply chains hit, pricing went through the roof. Labor was unavailable. All of a sudden now, what are the alternatives? You can only build with concrete, wood, or steel. That's it. And right? And we were the ones way down here, never touched, never seen. All of a sudden now, we moved all the way up to the front of the line. And that's what's happening right now. And I think it's the emphasis on technology, taking out all that deficiencies and inefficiencies that are in traditional construction, applying that technology into projects such as multifamily, single family, build to rent, senior living, hotels. It applies to everything.
Right.
So it's that one rare opportunity in 2020 and 2021 where, as an entrepreneur, I was tight. I was close to the edge. I was almost done. I was almost ready to just fold it up, right? And then all of a sudden 2020 showed up. And that's what entrepreneurship is. It's risk.
Yeah.
It's taking huge risks. It's taking just believing in it, thinking it's going to happen, trusting in yourself, and hope to God the market conditions turn in your way. Right?
Yep, having a little bit of faith and a little bit of luck.
A little bit of faith.
And a lot of hard work,
Yeah.
a lot of hard work and
Yeah.
grind, right?
Oh, yeah.
So what motivates you? I mean, you said it right there. I mean, it's a lot of hard work, a lot of risk. You need a little luck, you need a little faith. I mean, what motivates you to do that as an entrepreneur? What makes you do that instead of just like, say, I'm just going to go work for somebody else? What's been the motivating factor for you to take all that risk?
I think first to be what we are as entrepreneurs is that it's the challenge, right? And it's also recognizing the opportunity. It's not like we're blind. I mean, you and I can sense or smell or see an opportunity in front of us. I've watched you take advantage of COVID opportunities in your career, right?
Right.
Where just a moment shows up in a blip, you see the opportunity, you go after it, and it's hard work.
Yeah.
You get it done, and you step out of it, right?
Yeah.
I think that's part of it. I think the motivation is A, love the challenge. B, I love to build teams. C, I like to take an opportunity that's in front of us when you can see scale, right? Mm-hmm. When you know that you can scale it and you can grow it, that just absolutely lights me up.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun to be able to problem solve,
Yeah.
be able to create something,
Yeah.
get it going, being that fire starter.
Oh, yeah.
It's a heck of a lot of fun, right? It's a good journey.
And pain.
Pain, but with risk comes reward.
Yeah.
And a lot of people like us, we don't always do that well when other people are telling us what to do.
Nope.
So,
Don't do so well with that. Right.
so there's a lot of reward there, and I think that's a good insight. What might be your advice to someone else is thinking about taking an entrepreneurial journey? Someone else is thinking like they want to go that route, work for themselves, create something. Any advice for anybody out there that's looking to take that challenge?
I don't know if it's advice, but I just know that if you're not prepared to embrace the suck at the lowest moment where you're 100% certain it's going to go away and you're going to lose everything, your reputation, your name, your money, your house, everything. If you're not ready to put that on the line, don't step into it. It's just not worth it because the chances are that's what's going to come up, right? Yeah. And you can choose the suck, right? So there's a suck if you live inside of a cubicle and work for someone for 22 years and all of a sudden they cut you for whatever reason, right. And your 401k is what you're hoping for and that gets obliterated because of the economy.
Yep.
So what have you done for the last 25 years? That sucks, right? Mm-hmm. Or there's the suck of I'm willing to put all what I just mentioned on the line, right? You put all that on the line, you go after it, and then when you do win, the reward is astronomical. What's the reward at the end of this? Right? I mean, that's just the way I look at it. And I think that if you're not ready for that, don't take it on because it'll be painful. But if you can walk into it knowing that it will suck and the lowest parts are the best parts, you got to flip your mindset, right? You got to know that that's the best part, right? The lowest part, because you end up finding yourself, right?
Yeah, the lowest of lows, the highest of highs.
But you find yourself.
But yeah, you're being able to work through those real low points, grind through it, get to the other side, know that, it's not life or death.
No.
You could die in a car wreck tomorrow. Mm-hmm. You could get cancer. There's lots of things out there that can happen to you.
Oh, yeah.
But I think you got to be a little bit of a gambler. You got to be a gambler. You got to be willing to take the risk. But I think in many cases the reward outweighs the risk. And it's not even about the money. For me, it hasn't always been about the money. It's more about the challenge, getting through it, creating, getting it done, succeeding. And the money is just comes with all of that. If you put enough focus and energy into the same thing for long enough, the money will come.
it's not like we're blind, right? We're not going into this like so blind that we're just like, we're just
some calculated risk,
Yeah,
obviously, and you
right.
got to have some.
We're both like that.
Yeah, you got to have some idea what's going on. You have to be prepared, come up with financials, have business plans, have a really good idea. A lot of times those ideas might seem better than they actually were, but then it's working through those ideas,
right?
pivoting.
Got to
be able to pivot.
And pivot fast.
Yeah.
And bring people with you. I always think about like chefs, right? There's great chefs out there. And then they love what they do and they've got a passion what they do. And then they go out and they start a business. They start a restaurant.
Right.
All of a sudden they move from being a chef to being a restaurateur. Mm-hmm. And that's completely different. They've lost their passion has been separated from what they are trying to do, right?
Yep.
And I think that's what happens in people who are stepping into entrepreneurship or starting a business or starting a company is that you've got to recognize that it's a whole lot more than just the excitement of the passion of that moment. And I also think that people don't recognize, on the younger generation, I think that you got to spend time doing it first,
Right.
usually with somebody else, learning it from somebody else, and then hone your skills and sharpen your blade, and then you can do it for yourself. Because if you
You said that you had some other guys that brought you along the ride.
Yeah.
You learned a lot too.
100%.
I was very fortunate to have a few people that they saw something in me, or they just knew that thought I was stupid enough to do what they wanted for me to do what they wanted me to do, or whatever. But they were good mentors at the end. Whether they meant to be mentors or not, they were good mentors, and it was just about listening and really learning what they did, understanding why they were successful, and then try to repeat that.
Do you feel like for me it was fear, right? For me, usually my where I pick up the most, I learn the most is from fear, where I'm scared to death, right? Like, all right, I just took a huge step and I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't even know the industry. I don't even know anybody in the industry. I got to figure this out, right? It's usually that fear that gets me to start listening. And I start listening, I pay attention. And another thing I think too that people don't do as well today is maintaining networks, right? A lot of people have huge networks and they're very superficial in the social media world, right?
Right.
But are they really calling them? Are they really checking on them? Are they making friends with them? Are they diving deep with them? Are they going and spending time with them, right? That's where I think that people disconnect, right? And that's where you've got a group of friends that you can pick up the phone and call right now, no matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's electricity or technology or beverage, right? Yep. You've got somebody that you know.
Yeah, man, network, building that network, and like you said, not being superficial with it, like really trying to build relationships with people.
Yeah.
And not always just taking, giving as well.
Yeah.
And that's not always about money.
Right.
It's just might be helping someone else make a connection.
That's right.
Because usually that's going to come back some point, because you might need something from somebody. Hey, you know anybody in this industry? I mean, some of the biggest windfalls I've had is just because someone called me up and said, hey, I remember that you might know someone that does that. And I'm like, actually, I do know someone that does that.
Stefan too.
And now we can make a deal.
Yeah, right.
Right. So, and it's not always, it can't be one-sided. It's got to be about just, building relationships, building opportunities, the give and the take. And sometimes you never get anything out of it, but you never know. And you can't be doing it just to get something out of it.
No.
It's got to be real.
Putting people together,
it's got to be a connector, man.
Yeah.
And those connections come back.
They do.
If you're the guy that's always like, hey, where's that commission for that guy I told you that wanted to buy the chair in your office?
Yeah.
Where's my $10?
Which there's a lot of those.
Yeah.
And those are short-lived.
Yeah,
they're
not
short.
going to get you very far.
No, not at all. No. I totally agree with that.
So you got to be careful how you do those things, and you got to be genuine in your relationships.
Genuine in your relationships, and deep. I think you got to go a level deep, and that does mean, right? That's another level of sacrifice. You got to spend time. You got to go out. You got to hang out. You got to do what they like to do and figure out what they do, and invite them into your. Sometimes, like for Latin America, when you go to Latin America, if you're not inside their family or their relationship, you're not doing business, right? I think we don't have as much of that here, right? But there is still a version of that in your relationships. But, I think that's really critical. And the fact that we've both been, operating in Latin America and the U.S., we get a chance to kind of have a foot in and out of the kitchen to see really what's happening. Like this is how they apply their wares. This is how they apply their relationships. They don't have the legal system to back them up. So they're all relationship, right? Here you've got a legal contractual relationship that drives, what's happening, and that's where the disconnect starts to happen, right? People are hiding behind contracts, whereas, in other parts of the world, still in here, I'm not saying that it's not here, but it's not as prevalent as it was before. Here, you better hope that your contracts are in place there. You better hope that you got a great relationship with the people that you're across the table from, and they're inviting you to their house, and you're going to their family, right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely the sue happiness or the ability to litigate and sue people in other countries is not nearly as easy as it is here, right?
No.
So, for good or for bad,
Right. Right.
but it is what it is. And so, yeah, definitely being cognizant of that. So, back real quick to, Intellisteel
Yeah.
and the opportunity going forward with, modular building, bringing
Yeah.
technology into construction,
Yeah.
the efficiencies of the technology that you guys are doing.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see that going in the future? I mean, how are you using that technology to insert yourself into projects? What's the proposition that makes you guys better?
I think that globally the technology, because of its newness in the application of the technology towards building, construction, and framing, I think globally it has limitations because there's only so many people that understand all the nuances and structural capabilities of what cold form steel can do. It's been there forever. It's just that the processes allow for you to have structural attributes that that people aren't going to school and coming out with that knowledge, right? This is a more direct relationship with the technology as opposed to being a general. You can go to school and get CAD. You can go to school and get Revit, right? And that applies to a lot of things, but not what the technology that we use, and not technology that most people like us use, even with other manufacturers and other technologies. It's limited, right? The U.S. is ultra limited. And the thing that I've found out the most is here in the U.S., I think we focused our time, we learned. We didn't focus our time. We learned the hard way with scars on our back from trying to figure out how do you create the solution that allows for you to actually go into the marketplace. And that's really the differentiation of design and engineering, right? It's people think they buy the technology and it's just going to create unicorns in buildings, and it doesn't happen, right?
Yeah.
It's really what happens in the design engineering and what happens in the installation. And when those don't connect, it doesn't matter what the technology is doing because those two pieces won't work, right? So I've spent a tremendous amount of time gathering. Right now we have the deepest experience and expertise in the United States for design and engineering, and that gives us a leverage, right? Now we're beginning to find that people have recognized that, and they're beginning to call us and ask us to help them, or even actually try and put them under our flag, so we can bring them in. So for me, I see that technology application, for all the reasons why traditional construction has never worked before, why we've always had a supply problem, why it's been so deficient that the consumers have to pay for all the inefficiencies, right? I mean, it's simple. Architects draw a beautiful picture. Engineers put it out in the marketplace. The general contractor, unfortunate for them, are expected to build it, even though it's incomplete. It's completely incomplete, right? But they're on the job site, and they're having to use people who are sub-labor or sub-quality labor to try and just put it together. That's not fair to them, but that's what they're stuck with. And that's why they're suffering in the marketplace. That's also why they resist taking something new like us, right? But I think that right now, the technology applies itself in such a way that it answers all of those, the majority of those questions, and it puts it into a situation where rapid, industrialized, high quality, and cost-effective solutions for construction of any type of project is now for the first time available in the U.S. It wasn't there before. It's there now. It's present, and everybody knows it. And we've seen that change happen. So taking that design engineering and assembling that team, which is probably the only skill that I've got, is bringing in good people, right? And that's why we got you that time, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean, just bringing in really, really good people is what has allowed us to separate ourselves from the pack. And now we are looking to consolidate the market.
Well, that's great, man. It's quite a success story, and we hope you have a lot of success in the future. We know it's going to be a really upward trajectory at this point.
Yeah.
I think you've already gone through the lowest low you could possibly be at with Intellisteel. I think you
Promise.
guys are really
Promise.
have embraced the opportunity, learned a lot, and I see a really steep trajectory going forward, and we really hope it really works out for you.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be great. We've always, I think, going back, it was like 10 years or more when we first kind of learned about this whole industry.
Yeah.
It's a great building product. It's an amazing product, great technology, and unfortunately people have been very slow to adopt it. But I think there's more push now than ever to become more efficient with economic factors, labor factors, all these things involved. Insurance, supply chain.
Huge right now.
I mean, it's going to be, people have to make a change because it's just gotten to like a breaking point almost where things have to change in the construction industry.
That's a good point. I think you said it right. I think that it is come to a breaking point, and that breaking point exposed itself during COVID, and then right now with the insurances after the hurricanes that we've had in our markets, and Texas had in their markets and other coastal states. The insurances are completely impossible for these developers who have raised, hundreds of millions of dollars to do projects that all of a sudden don't pencil anymore. And they've got to figure out how it works, and the insurances are the things that are tipping it from penciling to not. And now the insurance rates, when you go from wood to cold form steel, it's an automatic. So I'm not even driving it anymore. I'm not even the one trying to sell up, right? It's the insurance companies and the financiers saying, well, we got to mitigate our risk and we got to reduce our insurance costs, otherwise we can't even do this deal. And we've already raised the money for it.
Right.
So they're the ones driving it right now, and I'm kind of piggybacking them right now as they're driving it into the market. So I'm the recipient person that's one of the people that are out there doing this. There's many of us that are out there doing it. I hope that we're doing it different.
Good. Yeah, I think you guys are, and I think it's going to be successful. Yeah. And like you guys are trying to revolutionize and making the actual construction industry more efficient. That's what we're trying to do with sales and marketing automation, using HubSpot, using smart tools. Just the same kind of idea.
Right.
It's about efficiency. It's about automation, reducing labor costs, reducing waste.
Yeah.
And making, at the end of the day, a better environment for everybody. Just from a work perspective or environmental perspective, resiliency, all the things that come into that to play with what you guys are doing. And anytime you try to bring efficiencies into any business or any sector. So thanks a lot for being here today. It's been a great conversation. And cheers to you. Cheers to Intellisteel.
Thanks, Jim.
And to all your success.
Thanks, man.
See you next time.